Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Inside Picks podcast. My name is Mike Owens and each week I'll be giving you my thoughts on the biggest fight in combat sports this weekend. We return to the UFC and we return to the middleweight division, and if anyone's seen episode 1, you saw that my prediction wasn't too great last week, but this time it's for the UFC middleweight title, with Dricus Du Plessis face Sean Strickland in Sydney, Australia. The first point to mention about this fight is obviously a rematch from a relatively recent fight. I mean, Dricus and Sean fought for the first time just over a year ago, so not too much time for either man to make too many changes, and that's always an interesting factor. When we look at the champion, 22-2 against the challenger, 29-6. The guys have already spent 5 rounds in the cage with each other. Dricus is 10-0 at the moment. He's undefeated in his last 10, with 8-0 in the UFC. Sean has won 4 of his last 5, including wins over Israel Adesanya and Nassourdine Imavov. The latter obviously aging very, very well, considering how his fight with Imavov went a couple of years ago. When we look at the first fight, UFC 297 in Canada, it is one of those fights that really can go either way. It feels a little bit like one of those fights where it is what you like. Do you like the output of Sean Strickland with the consistent jab and the consistent body punching? Or do you like Dricus' more high-octane power shots, if you will, the big kicks, the big body kicks, the overhand rights, both overhands, that sort of thing. In real time, I scored it for Dricus. Obviously, I have a relationship with Dricus. For those who don't know, I've interviewed Dricus a couple of times, so that always comes into it. But I did feel like Dricus landed the bigger, cleaner shots, more damaging shots, certainly, to get him that victory and to win him the UFC middleweight title. But I can certainly sympathise with Sean's feeling that he was hard done by. He rebounds well at UFC 302 against a diminished Paulo Costa, a Paulo Costa that we hadn't really seen in terms of very reserved, very defensive, very unwilling to exchange, and Sean did what he did and, in my opinion, won all 5 rounds that night. Dricus goes on into his first UFC title defence against Israel Adesanya, a big grudge match given the whole African champion debate, and after weathering an early storm, gets the 4th round submission over the former champion. That's obviously the biggest win of Dricus' career. Certainly in terms of name value, obviously to win a world title is one thing, but to defend your title against one of the division's best is certainly a massive feather in his cap. So both guys have certainly made good inroads. The question is how much have either improved from their first fight, and what have they shown in their subsequent fights that they can build upon and that can lead into this one.
We'll be right back to the video, fight fans, but first, big announcement, because UFC 312 is coming up this weekend in Sydney, Australia. We're going down under for some Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis, a rematch for the UFC middleweight title, and Inside Fighting has partnered up with our friends over at DraftKings to get you guys closer to all the action. And right now, new DraftKings customers who go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app can bet $5 and receive $200 of bonus bets instantly if you sign up using our promo code Inside Fighting. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets of DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game and get in on the action that way. If you love the thrill of live betting, DraftKings has you covered with live markets like Fight to Go the Distance, making watching fights that much more exciting. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry about it. Just go play DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports. Get in on all the action there. Again, in honor of UFC 312, new DraftKings customers who go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app can bet $5 and receive $200 of bonus bets instantly using our promo code Inside Fighting.
It is also a very, very interesting style contrast when you compare both men's styles. Sean Strickland has the high guard, boxing, peekaboo style. Luke Thomas refers to it as trench warfare, where he's in your face but he's so defensively sound that he doesn't ever really get hit with anything super clean other than against Alex Pereira, and we know what he can do in terms of his power punching. Dricus, on the other hand, a lot of people have a lot of things to say about his style, but let's be honest, it's one of the most effective in the UFC. Yes, it's unconventional, yes, it's unorthodox, and yes, it maybe doesn't look pretty, but it's effective and it scores big. To have stoppage victories, over both Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya in your last 3 fights is nothing short of super impressive. So as much as people have a lot of things to say about Dricus' style, it is a very effective one. The other point to mention about this fight is the takedown threat, and I feel like in many ways, as much as Sean can wrestle offensively, I do feel like if anybody is going to initiate a wrestling exchange, it will be Dricus, and I do feel like that was certainly something that we saw in the first fight, and certainly something that I think we will see in this rematch. The key question, I think, coming into this fight for Sean Strickland is what can he build? Not only on his previous outing against Dricus, but also against his career. Sean is very, very good at using a very select set of weapons in order to be effective. He uses his teeth very well, both off the front and off the back leg, and he uses his linear punching mixed in with wider punches to score effective work consistently over rounds. My one criticism of Sean is Israel Adesanya knockdown notwithstanding, I struggle to remember big moments that Sean has in fights. He wins rounds consistently, but he doesn't score with those super big octane strikes in the way that Dricus does. And I do feel like that could be the difference in this one. Dricus just lands with shots that are more memorable, higher scoring to judges, and then you just, generally speaking, see him over the line. Again, it's also going to be a battle of pressure. Both guys are front foot fighters, so it will be interesting to see who takes the backward step and who's really dictating that pace and that range. For me, I do feel like Dricus has got enough in his tank, both in terms of skill and also in terms of will, which quite frankly is what sees Dricus through in quite a lot of his fights to get over the line in this one. If Dricus is to defend the UFC middleweight title for a second time, he will be one of only 5 men to have defended the title more than once. That'll put him in a category of himself, Rich Franklin, Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman and Israel Adesanya, and it is at that point time to start talking about Dricus as one of the greatest middleweights to have ever done it. It really, really is. In terms of who could be next, I feel like Khamzat Chimaev probably gets that shot in October in Abu Dhabi, where he generally appears. That would make it sense from a timeline perspective for the winner of either this fight, and I just don't feel like, as much as Nasruddin Imavov had a crazy big win last Saturday, I don't feel like that will be enough to get him over the line and be able to leapfrog Khamzat Chimaev for the UFC middleweight title shot. But give me your thoughts. Who do you think is going to win this key middleweight fight? It's one of the biggest we've had. It's a really big fight. I'm really interested to see how this goes. Before we finish, please make sure to like and share this video and subscribe to the Inside Fighting YouTube channel if you haven't already.